Woo Jin Kim wiped his sweaty palms on his lab coat for the third time in 5 minutes. The main conference room of Research Station Harmony 7 had never felt this important before. Today was the day humanity would meet the Zenthari Empire for the first time. Real aliens, not just radio signals or distant ships, but actual face-to-face contact. "Stop fidgeting," Heron Park whispered from beside him. She looked perfect in her diplomatic uniform, every button polished and every hair in place. "This is the most important day in human history. Try not to mess it up with one of your jokes." Woo Jin nodded, but his mind was already racing. As the station's xenobiologist, he had studied every piece of data they had about the Zenthari. Blue skin, humanoid shape, slightly taller than humans on average. They were warriors, proud and strong. Their ships were beautiful and deadly. Everything about them screamed power and grace. Commander Tae-hyun Lee stood at the head of the long metal table. His gray hair was perfectly combed, and his dress uniform showed every medal he had earned in 30 years of service. Behind him, the large view screen showed empty space, waiting for the Zenthari ship to appear. "Remember, everyone," Commander Lee said in his deep voice. "We are representing all of humanity today. The Zenthari have the power to help us join the Galactic Coalition, or they can make sure we stay alone in this corner of space forever. No mistakes." Woo Jin felt his stomach twist. He had never been good at formal meetings. Give him a lab full of alien bacteria or strange plants, and he was fine. But put him in a room with important people, and his mouth always seemed to work faster than his brain. The view screen flickered. A massive ship appeared, sliding through space like a blue and silver dream. It was 3 times the size of their research station, with curves and angles that made it look like a work of art. Smaller ships flew around it in perfect formation. "Incoming transmission," announced the communications officer from her station near the Yao, back of the room. "Put it on screen," Commander Lee ordered. The view screen changed to show the inside of what must be the Zenthari ship. The walls were a soft blue color with silver patterns that seemed to move in the light. And there, standing in the center of the view, was their first real alien. She was beautiful in a way that made Woo Jin's breath catch. Her skin was indeed blue, but not the simple blue he had imagined. It was a deep, rich color like the ocean at sunset, with darker blue markings around her eyes and down her neck. Her hair was white as snow and pulled back in a complex braid. She wore armor that looked both practical and elegant, with silver plates that caught the light. "I am Kathira of the Zenthari Empire," she said. Her voice was clear and strong, with an accent that made the words sound like music. "I come to speak with the humans of this station about joining the greater community of worlds." Commander Lee stepped forward and bowed slightly. "Welcome, Kathira. I am Commander Tae-hyun Lee. We are honored by your visit." "The honor is shared," Kathira replied. "I will transport to your station with a small guard." "We have much to discuss." The screen went dark. Commander Lee turned to face the room, his eyes stopping on each person. "Final reminders. We address her as Kathira or honored delegate. No personal questions. No comments about her appearance. We stick to the prepared topics. Are we clear?" Everyone nodded. Woo Jin nodded too, but his palms were sweating again. Something about the way Kathira had looked at the camera, so serious and powerful, made him nervous in a way he could not explain. 20 minutes later, the transport bay doors opened with a soft hiss. Kathira walked through, and Woo Jin saw immediately that the view screen had not done her justice. She was taller than he expected, maybe 6.5 feet, and she moved like a dancer or a fighter. Her blue skin seemed to glow under the station's lights, and those dark markings around her eyes made her look mysterious and beautiful. 2 guards followed her, also blue-skinned but larger and wearing heavier armor. They said nothing, just took positions near the door and watched everything with sharp eyes. "Welcome aboard Harmony 7, Commander Lee said, stepping forward with his best diplomatic smile. "Please follow me to our conference room." They walked through the station's corridors in silence. Woo Jin found himself walking slightly behind Kathira, trying not to stare but unable to look away. She really was beautiful, and that blue color was amazing. It reminded him of something, but he could not quite place what. In the conference room, everyone took their seats. Kathira sat across from Commander Lee, with her guards standing behind her. The humans sat along both sides of the table, with Woo Jin unfortunately placed directly across from the alien diplomat. Before we begin formal discussions, Commander Lee said, perhaps we could introduce our team members. This will help us all understand who we are working with. A wise idea, Kathira agreed. Her eyes moved from person to person as Lee introduced the station's senior staff. When he reached Wu Jin, those alien eyes focused on him with interest. And this is Dr. Wu Jin Kim, our chief xenobiologist. He has studied your species extensively and will be working with your scientists. Kathira nodded politely. Dr. Kim, I look forward to learning about your research methods. Wu Jin opened his mouth to give a proper professional response. He had practiced it a dozen times, but as he looked at her sitting there, so serious and blue and beautiful, his brain made a connection that his mouth decided to share with the room. Nice to meet you too, he said with a grin. Has anyone ever told you that you look exactly like a blue Smurf? The room went completely silent. Erin's face turned white. Commander Lee's mouth fell open. Even the Zenthari guards looked shocked, but it was Kathira's reaction that made everything worse. Her blue skin suddenly became deeper, darker, almost purple around her cheeks and forehead. She blinked several times, looking confused and maybe embarrassed. Hey, blue Smurf? She asked slowly. I do not know this term. Erin jumped in quickly, her voice high and panicked. It's a reference to small fictional creatures from human entertainment. Blue in color. Very small. About this high. She held her hands a few inches apart. The change in Kathira was immediate and dramatic. Her confused expression turned to one of cold anger. Her eyes narrowed, and when she stood up, she seemed to grow even taller. You compare me to a small creature? She asked, her musical voice now carrying the edge of a sword. Wait, no, I didn't mean... Wu Jin started to say, but he never got to finish. Kathira's hand moved faster than his eyes could follow. The slap caught him across the left cheek with enough force to knock him completely out of his chair. He hit the floor hard, his ears ringing and his vision blurry. The Zenthari Empire does not speak with those who show such disrespect, Kathira announced to the room. She turned and walked toward the door, her guards falling in behind her. Wait, please, Commander Lee called out, jumping to his feet. It was a misunderstanding. Dr. Kim meant no insult. Kathira paused at the door and looked back. Her blue skin was still dark with anger. When someone compares a Zenthari warrior to a small, weak creature, there is no misunderstanding. There is only dishonor. And then she was gone, leaving behind a room full of humans and the smoking ruins of humanity's first chance to join the galaxy. Wu Jin sat in his quarters with an ice pack pressed to his swollen cheek, staring at the wall and wondering how he had managed to destroy humanity's future in less than 5 minutes. The left side of his face throbbed with each heartbeat, a constant reminder of how badly he had messed up. A soft chime announced someone at his door. Come in, he called, not really caring who it was. Erin entered carrying a medical scanner and looking like she had aged 10 years in the past hour. How's the face? She asked, sitting down in the chair across from his bed. Hurts less than my pride, Wu Jin mumbled through the ice pack. Please tell me Commander Lee isn't planning to throw me out an airlock. He's considering it, Erin said, but her voice was gentle. She ran the scanner over his cheek and frowned at the readings. You're lucky she didn't break your jaw. The medical computer says Zenthari are about 3 times stronger than humans. Wu Jin winced, both from the pain and from the thought of how much worse it could have been. I didn't mean to insult her, Erin. She just looked so... I don't know. The blue skin reminded me of Saturday morning cartoons when I was a kid. It was supposed to be friendly. I know, Erin sighed. But that doesn't help us now. The Zenthari ship is still here, but they're not answering any of our calls. Their warriors are talking about honor and insults and blood debt. None of it sounds good? The door chimed again. This time Commander Lee entered, followed by a woman Wu Jin didn't recognize. She was tall and thin with short black hair and sharp eyes that seemed to see everything at once. Dr. Kim, Commander Lee said in a voice like winter. This is Dr. So-Young Choi. She's a cultural anthropologist from the Mars University. I called her here the moment you decided to compare our first alien contact to a children's cartoon character. Dr. Choi stepped forward and studied Wu Jin's face with professional interest. Impressive bruising. She really didn't hold back, did she? Apparently not, Wu Jin said. Look, I know I messed up, but what exactly did I say that was so wrong? I called her a blue Smurf. In human culture, that's just a silly reference, not a deadly insult. Dr. Choi pulled out a datapad and sat down. That's exactly the problem. You applied human cultural context to an alien species. Let me explain what we've learned about the Xanthari in the past few hours. She tapped her pad, and a holographic display appeared showing various alien figures. The Xanthari are a warrior culture. Everything in their society is based on strength, honor, and respect. They measure worth by how well someone can fight and how much courage they show in battle. Okay, Wu Jin said slowly, but I still don't see why calling her blue was so bad. It wasn't the color reference, Commander Lee said. It was the size comparison. Smurfs are small, correct? About 6 inches tall in the original stories? Wu Jin nodded and Dr. Choi continued. In Xanthari culture, comparing someone to a small creature is like saying they're weak and worthless. It suggests they lack the strength and courage that their entire society values. It's not just rude, it's one of the worst insults possible. But I didn't know that, Wu Jin protested. How was I supposed to know their culture before meeting them? That's why we have protocols, Commander Lee said. That's why I told everyone to stick to safe topics and avoid personal comments. You were supposed to be professional. Heirin held up her hand. Fighting about it won't help now. The question is what we do next. Can we fix this? Dr. Choi looked thoughtful. Maybe. I've been studying their communication patterns and cultural responses. The slap wasn't random violence, it was a formal response to a formal insult. In their culture, when someone dishonors you, you can either challenge them to combat or demand some kind of payment for the insult. Combat? Wu Jin squeaked. You mean like a fight? With that woman who just knocked me across the room with one hand? Not necessarily physical combat, Dr. Choi said. Though that is one option. But there might be other ways to restore honor. The problem is we don't know enough about their specific customs yet. Commander Lee paced to the window that showed the stars and the Xanthari ship hanging in space like a blue threat. We're running out of time. Earth Command is asking for updates every hour. The political pressure is enormous. If we can't fix this, humanity stays isolated for maybe another 100 years. What about Thera herself? Heirin asked. What do we know about her specifically? Dr. Choi scrolled through her notes. She's young for a Xanthari diplomat, probably chosen for this mission because she's considered more flexible than older warriors. She's a fighter, but also trained in what they call word war, their version of diplomacy. The fact that she came alone instead of with a full war party suggests she wants this to work. Wu Jin removed the ice pack and looked at his friends. So she's not completely unreasonable. That's something, right? Maybe, Dr. Choi said. But here's what's interesting. When you made your comment, she didn't just get angry. According to the security recordings, she blushed first. Blushed? Commander Lee asked. How can you tell with blue skin? Her skin color changed. It got darker around her face and neck. In most humanoid species, that's a sign of embarrassment or emotional confusion, not anger. She only got angry after Heirin explained what a Smurf was. Wu Jin sat up straighter. So she wasn't mad about the comment itself. She was mad about the explanation. Exactly, Dr. Choi nodded, which means the original comment confused her rather than insulted her. It was only when she learned you were comparing her to something small that she became angry. That's... Heirin started, then stopped. That's actually good news, isn't it? It means the insult wasn't intentional from her perspective until she understood what you meant. Commander Lee looked skeptical. How does that help us? She still thinks Wu Jin insulted her on purpose. Dr. Choi was quiet for a moment, thinking, what if we could explain the real context? Not just what a Smurf is, but why humans make those kinds of comparisons. The cultural meaning behind casual references? You mean explain human humor? Heirin asked, more than that. Explain how humans process new information through familiar references. How we try to connect new experiences to things we already know. It's not about making judgments, it's about understanding. Wu Jin felt a spark of hope. You think she might understand that I wasn't trying to insult her? That I was just trying to make sense of meeting her? Maybe, Dr. Choi said. But it would require getting her to listen to us again. And right now she's not taking any calls. What about back channels? Heirin suggested. Every diplomatic mission has informal communication methods. Ways to talk without making it official. Commander Lee frowned. That would be risky. If we approach her unofficially and she takes it as another insult, we could make things even worse. Can they get worse? Wu Jin asked. Right now she thinks I deliberately insulted her in the worst possible way. I'm not sure how much deeper we can dig this hole. Dr. Choi looked at her datapad again. There's something else. While she was leaving, she paused when you started to apologize. Just for a second, but she did hesitate. That suggests she's not completely closed to the idea of resolving this. So what do we do? Commander Lee asked. We try to reach her, Dr. Choi said, but not through official channels. We need to approach this as a personal matter between Wu Jin and Kathira, an honor issue that can be resolved between individuals rather than a diplomatic crisis between species. Wu Jin stood up, still holding the ice pack. How do I do that? I'm a biologist, not a diplomat. I study alien plants, not alien cultures. That might actually be perfect, Dr. Choi smiled for the first time since arriving. You're not a politician or a formal diplomat. You're just a human who made a mistake and wants to fix it. That kind of honesty might appeal to a warrior culture more than careful diplomatic language. You want me to contact her directly? Wu Jin asked. We want you to try, Commander Lee said slowly. But if you make this worse, Wu Jin, I'll personally recommend that Earth never lets you near another first contact situation for the rest of your life. Wu Jin looked around the room at the three people, who were somehow trusting him with humanity's future again. No pressure at all. None whatsoever, Heirin said with a weak smile. Just the fate of our entire species resting on your ability to apologize properly to an alien warrior who can bench press a hover car. Wu Jin put the ice pack down and straightened his shoulders. Right, how hard can it be? Wu Jin sat in the xenobiology lab at 3 a.m, surrounded by data screens and empty coffee cups. He had been working for 6 hours straight, trying to craft a message that might save humanity's future. Every few sentences he would delete everything and start over. The problem wasn't finding the right words. The problem was understanding what the right words even were. How do you apologize to an alien when you don't really understand what you did wrong? How do you explain human culture to someone who thinks strength is the most important thing in the universe? Still up? A voice said from the doorway. Jin Woo-nam stepped into the lab carrying 2 steaming cups of coffee. As the station's security chief, he was used to staying up late, but even he looked tired. Can't sleep, Wu Jin said, accepting the coffee gratefully. Every time I close my eyes, I see her face when she realized what I said. She looked so hurt before she got angry. Jinwoo sat down in the chair next to him and looked at the screen full of deleted message attempts. You really care about this, don't you? I mean, beyond just saving humanity from diplomatic disaster. Wu Jin was quiet for a moment. She was beautiful, Jinwoo. Not just physically, though she was that too. There was something about the way she carried herself, the way she spoke, like she was completely sure of who she was and what she believed in. I've never met anyone like that before. And you called her a cartoon character, Jinwoo said with a slight smile. My timing has always been terrible, Wu Jin sighed, but I keep thinking about what Dr. Choi said. She blushed before she got angry. That means something, right? Before Jinwoo could answer, Wu Jin's computer chimed with an incoming message. Both men looked at the screen in surprise. It was marked as coming from an unauthorized source, which meant it was coming from outside the station's normal communication channels. Should I call Commander Lee? Jinwoo asked, reaching for his communicator. Wait, Wu Jin said, studying the message header. Look at this. It's addressed specifically to me, and it's coming from the Zenthari ship. But it's not through official diplomatic channels. He opened the message, and text appeared on the screen in English, though the style was formal and slightly awkward, as if translated from another language. Dr. Wu Jin Kim, I am Kathira. I send this message through the science data channels, not the diplomatic ones. I have questions about your words today, about these blue Smurfs and about human meanings. I do not understand why you said this thing to me. In my culture, we do not speak in puzzles or make references to things that do not exist. Will you explain? Wu Jin stared at the screen, his heart racing. She's talking to me. She actually wants to understand. This is good, right? Jinwoo asked. I think so, but I need to be careful. One wrong word and I could make everything worse. Wu Jin cracked his knuckles and started typing. Kathira, thank you for writing to me. I am sorry for my words today. I did not mean to insult you. In human culture, when we meet someone new or see something we have never seen before, we sometimes compare it to things we already know. It helps us understand. When I saw your blue skin, it reminded me of characters from stories I knew as a child. I was trying to connect with you, not make you small. He paused, reading over what he had written. That sounds stupid, doesn't it? Maybe, Jinwoo said. But it's honest. Send it. Wu Jin hit the send button and immediately started worrying about the response. They didn't have to wait long. 5 minutes later, another message appeared. This is strange to me. Xanthari do not compare new things to old things. We see what is there, not what it reminds us of. But you say this is normal for humans? You always do this? Wu Jin smiled slightly. She wasn't angry in this message. She sounded curious, maybe even interested. He typed back quickly. Yes, we do this all the time. When human children see clouds, they say they look like animals or faces. When we taste new food, we compare it to food we already know. When we meet new people, we sometimes think they remind us of characters from books or movies. It is how our brains work. We make connections between new experiences and old memories. This time, the response took longer. Wu Jin and Jinwoo sat in silence, drinking coffee and watching the screen. Finally, new text appeared. I have been thinking about your words, and about human culture. I downloaded some of your entertainment files to understand these Smurfs. They are small blue creatures who live in mushroom houses and fight evil wizards. They are brave and clever and loyal to each other. They overcome great dangers despite being small. Is this what you meant when you compared me to them? Wu Jin's hands shook slightly as he typed his response. This was it. The moment that could either fix everything or destroy it completely. Yes. In human culture, calling someone a Smurf means you think they are brave and resourceful and good. The blue color was what I noticed first, but the courage and strength are what made the comparison meaningful. I was trying to say that you impressed me. I was trying to show respect, not take it away. The next message took almost 20 minutes to arrive. When it did, it was longer than the others. I have spoken with my cultural advisors about this. They tell me that humans use something called metaphor and analogy in your communication. You say one thing but mean another thing. This is very confusing to Xanthari. We say what we mean and mean what we say. When you called me small, I thought you were saying I was weak. But you were saying I was brave? This makes no sense to my people. Wu Jin thought carefully before responding. This was the heart of the misunderstanding, and he needed to explain it in a way she could understand. I understand your confusion. Humans do use metaphor and comparison in ways that can be confusing, but think of it this way. When a Xanthari warrior honors a fallen enemy, you might say they fought like a storm or struck like lightning. You don't mean they were actually weather. You mean they had qualities like a storm. Power, fury, unstoppable force. That is what I was doing with the Smurf comparison. I saw qualities in you that reminded me of characters I admired. Another long pause. Then, this is interesting. You are saying that humans see connections between things that are not obviously connected, that you find meaning in these connections. And when you called me a blue Smurf, you were trying to honor me with this connection, not insult me. Exactly, Wu Jin typed back immediately. I was trying to honor you. I just did it in a very human way that your culture doesn't use. I should have been more careful to think about how you would understand my words. But how could you know our customs when this is our first meeting? Came the reply. How could you understand Xanthari honor when you had never met a Xanthari before? Wu Jin stared at that message for a long time. She was right, of course. He couldn't have known. But somehow that made him feel worse, not better. You are right, he typed finally. I could not have known. But that does not make my words hurt you less, and it does not fix the dishonor I caused. In human culture, not knowing something wrong does not mean you are not responsible for the harm it causes. The response came quickly this time. Now you sound like a Xanthari warrior. We believe that actions have consequences whether you intended them or not, but we also believe that honor can be restored through understanding and proper action. Tell me, Dr. Wu Jin Kim, what would you do to restore the honor you damaged? Wu Jin's heart pounded. This was it. She was offering him a chance to make things right. But what could he possibly do that would mean something to a warrior culture? I do not know your customs well enough to suggest the proper action, he typed. But I am willing to do whatever is required to restore your honor and fix the harm I caused. Even if it means facing consequences that might hurt me. Even if it means personal combat with a Xanthari warrior, came the immediate response. Wu Jin looked at Jinwoo, who was reading over his shoulder. His friend's face was pale. If that is what honor requires, Wu Jin typed, then yes, though I should warn you that I am a scientist, not a fighter. It would not be much of a contest. For almost an hour, no response came. Wu Jin and Jinwoo sat in the quiet lab, both wondering if he had just volunteered to be killed by an alien warrior. Finally, text appeared on the screen. Your willingness to face consequences you cannot win shows true courage, Dr. Kim. This is a quality my people respect greatly. I think there may be another way to restore honor, one that serves both our cultures better than combat. Would you be willing to meet with me privately to discuss terms? The observation deck of Harmony 7 was quiet at this hour, with only the soft hum of life support systems and the endless stars beyond the large viewing windows. Wu Jin stood waiting, his hands sweating despite the cool air. He had agreed to meet Kathira here for their private discussion, away from cameras and recording devices and the watchful eyes of both their peoples. The door opened with a soft hiss and she stepped through alone. Without her guards and formal armor, Kathira looked smaller somehow, though still impressively tall. She wore simple blue clothing that seemed to flow as she moved, and her white hair hung loose around her shoulders instead of being braided for ceremony. "Dr. Kim," she said, stopping a few feet away from him. Her voice was quieter than it had been in the conference room, less formal. "Please, just call me Wu Jin," he said. "After everything that's happened, I think we can skip the formal titles." She tilted her head slightly and he caught a glimpse of something that might have been a smile. "Very well, Wu Jin. I am simply Kathira here." They stood in awkward silence for a moment, both looking out at the stars. Finally, Kathira spoke again. "I have been thinking about our conversation through the data channels, about human culture and the way your people see connections between different things. It is very strange to me, but also interesting." "Strange how?" Wu Jin asked, genuinely curious. "Zenthari culture values directness above all else. When we speak, we say exactly what we mean. When we feel something, we show it clearly. When we want something, we ask for it directly. But humans seem to speak in layers with meanings hidden beneath other meanings." Wu Jin nodded slowly. "That's actually a pretty accurate description. We do tend to be indirect sometimes. It can cause problems even between humans, let alone between species." "Yes, I am beginning to understand this," Kathira said. She moved closer to the viewing window, and the starlight caught the dark markings around her eyes. "When you called me a blue Smurf, you were not making a simple observation about my appearance. You were trying to express multiple feelings at once. Recognition, connection, even admiration. But you wrapped these feelings in a reference that required cultural knowledge to understand." "Exactly," Wu Jin said, feeling a spark of hope. "And when I saw that you didn't understand the reference, I should have explained better instead of letting Heirin make it worse with the size comparison." Kathira was quiet for a moment, looking out at the Zenthari ship visible in the distance. "There is something I must tell you, Wu Jin. When you first spoke those words to me before I understood their meaning, I felt something I had never experienced before." "What do you mean?" She turned to face him, and in the soft starlight her blue skin seemed to glow. "The coloring change you witnessed, what your people call blushing, this is very rare among Zenthari. It happens only when we encounter something that challenges our understanding in a way that is both confusing and pleasant." Wu Jin felt his heart speed up. "Pleasant?" Your words made no sense to me, but they were clearly not hostile. They were said with warmth, with something that looked like appreciation. This confused me greatly because Zenthari do not typically express appreciation for strangers in such personal terms. But the confusion was not unpleasant. It was stimulating. "So you weren't embarrassed," Wu Jin said. "You were intrigued." "Yes, though I did not understand this at the time. It was only when your companion explained that you were comparing me to a small creature that my confusion turned to anger. I thought you had deliberately misled me, made me feel positive emotions about an insult." Wu Jin moved closer to the window, standing near enough to Kathira that he could see the intricate patterns in her skin markings. "I'm sorry for that confusion, and I'm sorry that something meant to be positive became hurtful instead. I know this now," she said softly. "Your willingness to face combat to restore my honor proved your sincerity. No one volunteers to fight a Zenthari warrior unless they are either very brave or very foolish. Probably both. In my case," Wu Jin said with a weak smile. To his surprise, Kathira made a sound that might have been laughter. "Yes, I am beginning to think humans are often both brave and foolish at the same time. It is an interesting combination." They stood in comfortable silence for a while, watching the stars. Finally, Wu Jin spoke up. "You mentioned wanting to discuss terms for restoring honor. What did you have in mind?" Kathira turned to face him fully. "Traditional Zenthari honor restoration requires either combat or the payment of a significant debt. But I have been thinking that perhaps there is a third option, one that serves both our peoples better." I'm listening. What if instead of fighting or paying a debt, we engaged in what your people might call a cultural exchange? You could teach me about human ways of thinking and communication, and I could teach you about Zenthari concepts of honor and directness. We could learn to understand each other's perspectives. Wujin felt excitement building in his chest. That's actually brilliant. Instead of one person winning and one person losing, we both gain knowledge. Exactly. And if we can learn to bridge the gap between our cultures, it could help our peoples work together in the future. Your mistake could become the foundation for better understanding. You really think that could work? Wujin asked. I think it is worth trying, Kathira said, but it would require honesty from both of us. Complete directness about our thoughts and feelings, even when they are uncomfortable or embarrassing. Wujin thought about this. That's going to be hard for me. Humans aren't used to being completely direct about everything. And it will be hard for me to understand indirect communication and hidden meanings, Kathira replied, but perhaps that is what makes it a fair exchange. How would we even start something like this? Wujin asked. Kathira was quiet for a moment, thinking. We could begin with simple questions. I could ask you about human culture and you could ask me about Zenthari ways, but we would both promise to answer completely honestly, without hiding behind politeness or cultural expectations. That sounds terrifying, Wujin said. Yes, Kathira agreed. But also, what is the human word? Exciting? Wujin looked at her, standing there in the starlight with her alien beauty and her offer of mutual understanding, and felt something shift in his chest. Very exciting. Should we try it now? If you are willing, she said. I will ask the first question and you must answer with complete honesty. All right, Wujin said, bracing himself. Kathira looked directly into his eyes. When you first saw me in the conference room, what was your immediate reaction? Not the words you spoke, but what you felt in that moment. Wujin felt heat rise in his cheeks. This was exactly the kind of question he would normally deflect with humor or change the subject, but he had promised honesty. I thought you were the most beautiful person I had ever seen, he said quietly, human or alien, and I was nervous because I found you attractive, which made me say something stupid, because that's what I do when I'm nervous around beautiful women. Kathira's skin darkened slightly around her cheeks. That same blushing response from before. That is very direct. Your turn to be honest, Wujin said. What did you feel when I said those words to you? Kathira took a deep breath. I felt pleased that you noticed me as an individual, not just as a representative of my species. And I felt confused because the words themselves meant nothing to me, but the way you said them made me want to understand what you meant. And then I felt angry when I thought you had tricked me into feeling pleased about an insult. But now you know I wasn't trying to trick you. Now I know, she agreed, and I find myself curious about what other human expressions might have meanings I do not understand. Wujin smiled. There are a lot of them. We could spend months just on human humor. Months? Kathira asked, and there was something in her voice that sounded almost hopeful. If you're willing to take that long to understand each other, Wujin said. She looked out at the stars again, then back at him. I think understanding between our peoples is worth taking time to develop properly. Even if it means spending that time with the human who called you a cartoon character? Kathira's expression shifted into something that was definitely a smile. Especially then. I am beginning to think that humans who make cultural mistakes might also be the ones most willing to learn from them. Standing there in the starlight, with an alien warrior who was willing to turn his biggest mistake into a chance for connection, Wujin felt like maybe humanity's future was going to be more interesting than anyone had imagined. 3 weeks later, the conference room of Harmony 7 looked very different. Instead of the formal diplomatic setup from before, chairs were arranged in a casual circle. Holographic displays showed cultural information from both Earth and the Zenthari homeworld. And in the center of it all, Wujin and Kathira sat side by side, working on something that no one had expected, a new framework for interspecies communication. So when humans say something is cool, Kathira said, reading from a data pad, they do not mean the temperature is low. They mean it is impressive or admirable. Right, Wujin nodded. And when Zenthari say someone has sharp steel, you don't mean they're carrying a weapon. You mean they're intelligent and quick thinking. Exactly, Kathira smiled. It was an expression she had learned from watching humans, and it looked natural on her blue features now. Both cultures use metaphor, but in very different ways. Their work was interrupted by the sound of the conference room doors opening. Commander Lee entered, followed by two people Wu Jin didn't recognize. An older human man in an admiral's uniform and a tall Zenthari warrior, whose presence seemed to fill the room with tension. Dr. Kim. Thera, Commander Lee said formally. I'd like you to meet Admiral Sung Ho Yoon from Earth Fleet Command and War Leader Zephyros from the Zenthari High Command. Both newcomers looked around the casual conference room with expressions that suggested they were not pleased with what they saw. Admiral Yoon was a stern man with gray hair and cold eyes. War Leader Zephyros was even more imposing than Thera, with darker blue skin and scars that spoke of many battles. What is the meaning of this arrangement? Admiral Yoon asked, gesturing at the informal setup. I was told there was a diplomatic crisis that needed immediate resolution. There was, Commander Lee said carefully. But Dr. Kim and Thera have been working on a solution. War Leader Zephyros stepped forward, his armor clanking with each movement. When he spoke, his voice was deep and commanding. Thera, you were sent here to establish formal diplomatic relations, not to play games with humans. The High Command demands a proper resolution to the insult that was given. Thera stood up, and Wu Jin could see her shifting into a more formal posture. War Leader Zephyros, I have been working to restore honor through understanding rather than combat. The human Wu Jin has shown great courage and— Courage? Admiral Yoon interrupted. From what I've read in the reports, Dr. Kim insulted your representative and nearly destroyed humanity's chance at Galactic Alliance. That doesn't sound like courage to me. Wu Jin felt heat rise in his cheeks, but before he could respond, Thera spoke up firmly. With respect, Admiral, you do not understand what has happened here. The initial incident was a misunderstanding of cultural meaning, not a deliberate insult. And Wu Jin's response has been to learn our ways and teach us his. This shows the kind of courage my people value most, the willingness to face the unknown and grow from it. War Leader Zephyros frowned. You speak strangely, Thera. Have these humans confused your thinking with their word games? No, Thera said, standing straighter. They have helped me see that there are different kinds of strength. The strength to admit mistakes, the strength to learn new ways of thinking, the strength to build understanding instead of just winning battles. Admiral Yoon looked skeptical. That sounds very nice, but the political reality is that we need formal diplomatic agreements, not cultural exchange programs. Earth needs access to galactic trade routes and defense treaties, and the Zenthari Empire needs allies who understand honor and commitment, War Leader Zephyros added. Not species who make jokes about our appearance. Wu Jin felt anger building in his chest. These people were trying to undo everything he and Thera had built together. With respect to both of you, he said, standing up, you're missing the point entirely. Excuse me? Admiral Yoon said in a dangerous voice. You're thinking about this like it's a business deal, Wu Jin continued, knowing he was probably ending his career but not caring. Sign some papers, shake some hands, everybody gets what they want. But that's not how real relationships work. You have to actually understand each other first. War Leader Zephyros took a step forward, and his hand moved toward his weapon. You dare lecture us about relationships, human? Yes, I do, Wu Jin said, surprised by his own boldness. Because 3 weeks ago I made a stupid cultural mistake that almost started a war. But instead of hiding behind formal apologies and diplomatic protocol, Thera and I decided to actually learn about each other. And you know what we discovered? What? Commander Lee asked quietly. We discovered that humans and Zenthari want a lot of the same things. We both value courage, but we define it differently. We both believe in honor, but we express it in different ways. We both want to understand the universe, but we approach learning from different directions. Thera stepped up beside him. Wu Jin is correct. The work we have done together has shown me that humans have their own kind of strength. They face uncertainty with humor instead of aggression. They solve problems by making connections between ideas that seem unrelated. They turn mistakes into opportunities for growth. And I've learned that Zenthari directness isn't rudeness, Wu Jin added. It's a form of respect. When Thera tells me exactly what she thinks, she's treating me as someone strong enough to handle the truth. That's actually incredibly honoring. Admiral Yoon looked frustrated. This is all very touching, but it doesn't address the practical issues. How do we move forward with formal negotiations? War leader Zephyros nodded. The High Command requires traditional forms of honor satisfaction. Cultural exchange does not resolve formal insults. Wu Jin looked at Kathira and she nodded slightly. They had talked about this possibility and they had prepared for it. What if we propose something different? Kathira said. What if instead of traditional diplomatic negotiations, we establish a new kind of alliance based on mutual learning? What do you mean? Commander Lee asked. A joint cultural and scientific exchange program, Wu Jin explained. Humans and Xanthari working together on research projects, sharing knowledge about everything from technology to art to philosophy. Instead of just trading goods or signing defense treaties, we become genuine partners in understanding the universe. War leader Zephyros looked thoughtful. This would require both species to show trust and commitment over time. It would be a test of true alliance, not just political convenience. Exactly, Kathira said, and it would honor both our cultures. Xanthari would demonstrate our commitment through action over time, and humans would demonstrate their adaptability and growth. Admiral Yoon frowned. That's a much more complex arrangement than simple trade agreements. It would require ongoing cooperation at every level of both societies. Yes, Wu Jin said, but it would also be much stronger than anything based just on mutual convenience. When two species really understand each other, they don't break alliances just because circumstances change. There was a long silence in the room. Finally, War Leader Zephyros spoke. This proposal has merit. It would allow both species to prove their worth over time, rather than making promises that might not be kept. And it would give us a foundation for the kind of long-term partnership that could benefit both civilizations. Admiral Yoon said slowly, though it would be much more work than traditional diplomatic agreements. Commander Lee looked around the room. Are we actually considering this? Making first contact about cultural exchange instead of political treaties? Why not? Kathira asked. Political agreements can be broken when leaders change or circumstances shift, but understanding between peoples once it's real tends to last. Wu Jin felt a smile spreading across his face. Plus, think about what we could learn from each other. Human creativity and Xanthari discipline, our adaptability and their commitment to excellence. We could probably solve problems that neither species could handle alone. War leader Zephyros turned to Kathira. You believe this human speaks truly? That this partnership could bring honor to both our peoples? I do, Kathira said firmly. Wu Jin has shown me that humans can learn from their mistakes and grow stronger because of them. That is a form of courage that complements our own. Admiral Yoon looked at Wu Jin. And you believe the Xanthari can work with humans long-term, despite our cultural differences? I believe our differences are actually our strength, Wu Jin said. Kathira has taught me that directness and commitment aren't limitations. They're gifts that humans need to learn from. Together we're both better than we are separately. Commander Lee shook his head in amazement. 3 weeks ago, you nearly started an interstellar incident by calling her a cartoon character. Now you're proposing to reshape human-alien relations. Wu Jin looked at Kathira, who was smiling again. Sometimes the biggest mistakes lead to the best discoveries. Speaking of which, Kathira said, pulling out a data pad, I have been studying human entertainment, and I believe I understand the appeal of these Smurfs now. Small beings who overcome great challenges through cooperation and determination. It is actually quite an admirable comparison. She paused and her blue skin darkened slightly around her cheeks. In fact, I have prepared something for you. What? Wu Jin asked.